Welcome to Tainted Trusts, where broken loyalty, hidden betrayal, and poisonous promises are brought into the light. Here, every story reveals the truth behind toxic relationships, family secrets, and the quiet path toward justice. Listen closely, because trust is fragile, but revenge remembers. My husband said it was for a child, but the money had our daughter's name on it, and after he gave it to his ex, Ava lost her place at Pine Hollow. Then the school parking lot camera showed the emergency was never real. The money had our daughter's name on it. That is the sentence I kept saying later. After the police report, after the hearing, after my husband Mark stood under fluorescent courtroom lights and tried to explain why he had handed $46,000 to a woman who had once told me she would always come first. The money had Ava's name on it. It was not vague savings. It was not a marital account. It was not a pile of money sitting around waiting for the loudest emergency. It was a trust my mother had created 6 months before she died, when the cancer had made her hands thin but her mind had stayed terrifyingly sharp. She called it Ava's Bridge Fund because she said our daughter would spend her life crossing bridges other children never saw. Ava was 8 years old, bright and watchful, with hearing loss in one ear, sensory processing difficulties, and a speech delay that made strangers mistake silence for emptiness. There was nothing empty about my daughter. She collected facts about birds, knew the exact sound of our neighbor's truck, and could tell when I was sad before I knew it myself. She needed a specialized school placement that cost more than my first car, therapy that insurance called optional, and adults who understood that progress did not always look like conversation. My mother understood. She had sat in the lobby through evaluations, learned Ava's signs, and kept a notebook full of tiny victories. The first time Ava said grandma without prompting, my mother cried in the parking lot with both hands over her face. When she set up the trust, she named me primary trustee and Mark secondary. I questioned that then. I said Mark was Ava's father, that he should be equal. My mother looked at me from her hospital bed and said, "Equal love is not the same as equal judgment." I thought it was the medication talking. It was not. The first time Mark suggested touching the trust, it was for something reasonable. An assistive communication tablet, a deposit for Pine Hollow Learning Center, a summer program where Ava could work with a speech therapist who used music instead of flashcards. He came to the bank with me. He signed where I asked. He kissed Ava's forehead when she tried the tablet and chose the button that said happy. That is what makes betrayal difficult to describe. The person who ruins your life usually has days when they are gentle. You have evidence of kindness. You have memories that argue against the facts. And then, one Thursday in October, Mark came home pale, holding his phone like it was a wound. "Vanessa called," he said. "I was cutting apple slices for Ava's dinner. Train plate, green cup, apple skin peeled because texture mattered." Vanessa was Mark's ex-wife. They had no children together, which had never stopped her from acting like she had permanent emergency rights over him. "What does she want?" He swallowed. "It's Caleb." Caleb was Vanessa's 15-year-old son from the man she dated after Mark. He was not Mark's child. He was not our responsibility. I had said those words carefully for years and had been punished for them with sighs, silence, and Mark's tired accusation that compassion did not have to be biological. "What happened?" I asked. She said the school called. "There was an incident. She needs help tonight." Ava looked up at the word incident. She hated words that changed the temperature of a room. I lowered my voice. "Help how?" Mark would not look at me. That was my first warning. The second was that he did not say money right away. He said, "Please don't make this about Vanessa." And just like that, before I knew the amount, before I knew the lie, before I knew a school camera had already recorded the truth, I understood that he had already chosen which woman he was trying to protect. Mark told the story the way people tell lies, when they want to sound reluctant instead of practiced. Vanessa had called from Maple Ridge Academy, sobbing in a bathroom. Caleb had supposedly collapsed after a fight in the East hallway. There was talk of a private trauma program, an emergency placement, a deposit required before midnight. She had no family. Her current boyfriend had vanished. The school was useless. The hospital system was cruel. Mark was the only person she trusted. Every sentence was wrapped around one purpose: make me feel ashamed for asking questions. "How much?" I asked. Mark rubbed both hands over his face. 46,000. The apple knife stopped in my hand. Ava pressed her palms over her ears, not because it was loud, but because the room had gone sharp. I put the knife down and went to her first. That is something I want remembered. Before I answered my husband, before I let panic become language, I knelt beside my daughter and signed, safe. She signed back, slow and uncertain. Only then did I turn to Mark. We do not have $46,000 outside Ava's trust. I know. The way he said it was not the way a man sounds when he is proposing something terrible. It was the way he sounds when he has already done it in his head and is waiting for you to become the obstacle. No, Lena. No, Mark. It is a child. Our child has a tuition deposit due Monday. This is an emergency. Ava's life is not a savings account for Vanessa's emergencies. His jaw tightened. That sentence would become proof of my cruelty later. He would repeat it to his sister, to his mother, to the counselor he saw once and never again. He would remove the context and hold it up like evidence that I had no heart. At the time, he only stared at me. You don't know what it was like with her, he said. With Vanessa, with being responsible for someone who has no one. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the audacity of saying that to me, while I stood beside the child whose entire week I built hour by hour, was so complete it felt unreal. I know exactly what being responsible means, I said. That is why I am saying no. His phone buzzed again. Vanessa, of course. Her name lit the screen with a photo I had asked him to remove years earlier. Vanessa at a beach, hair in her face, smiling like she had won something. Mark saw me see it. He turned the phone over. She is scared, he said. So am I. He did not answer that. Ava's dinner went cold. The green cup stayed full. I managed bath time while Mark stood in the hallway whispering into his phone. I heard fragments. I'm trying. She doesn't understand. No, I won't let that happen. That last sentence settled under my skin. At 10:30, after Ava finally slept, I found Mark in the garage with his laptop open on the workbench. He shut it too fast. What are you doing? Nothing. Open it. He looked at me with the tired contempt of a man who has decided his wife is making him feel small on purpose. Lena, I'm not one of your students. I taught 4th grade. He used that line whenever he wanted to make accountability sound childish. Open the laptop, I said. He didn't. I walked toward him. He stepped in front of the workbench. That was when fear changed shape. It stopped being worry and became knowledge. You already moved it, I said. His face did not change enough, but it changed. And somewhere in our sleeping house, the trust my mother built around my daughter was already bleeding out into Vanessa's hands. The bank opened at 9. I was there at 8:40, standing in the parking lot with my coat half-buttoned and my phone gripped so hard my fingers hurt. Ava was with my neighbor, Mrs. Danvers, who understood emergencies without demanding details. Mark had left before sunrise, claiming he needed to clear his head. He had taken his laptop and the gray folder where I kept the trust statements. That folder being gone told me more than any confession could. The trust officer's name was Priya Shah. She had worked with my mother when the documents were created. Priya was a careful woman with a calm voice and the kind of professional gentleness that made bad news feel more precise, not less painful. When I said Ava's bridge fund, her face softened. When I said unauthorized transfer, her face hardened. Let me pull the activity. She typed. I watched her eyes move across the screen. There is a particular silence people make when they have found the thing you feared. Mrs. Harrow, she said. There was a withdrawal yesterday at 4:12 p.m. How? Secondary trustee authorization. My mother's words came back like a door slamming. Equal love is not equal judgment. How much? $46,800. I sat very still. Where did it go? Priya hesitated. It appears to have been sent by cashier's check rather than direct wire. The check was issued to Vanessa Bell. Not a hospital, not a school, not a medical program. Vanessa Bell, can you reverse it? I'm sorry. Those 2 words are often a curtain. People put them up when the real answer is too ugly to say plainly. Priya explained the process. Formal dispute, trustee review, potential civil action, possible report if fraud was involved. Her voice was kind. The words were not. Mark had used his legal authority as secondary trustee. The bank could not simply undo what looked, on paper, like a father using funds for a child-related emergency. A child-related emergency. A phrase broad enough to hide a crime. I asked for copies of everything. Priya printed them and placed them in a blue folder. My hands shook when I took it. Outside, I called Mark. He did not answer. I called again. On the third try, he picked up. "You went to the bank," he said. "Not a question. You gave Vanessa Ava's money." I helped Caleb. "You gave Vanessa Ava's money. You keep saying it like that because you want it to sound ugly. It is ugly." He exhaled hard. "You were going to let a kid suffer to make a point. What program? What hospital? What invoice?" He was quiet for half a second too long. "Vanessa is sending the paperwork. She got $46,000 without showing you paperwork. She was at the school. She didn't have time to make a packet for your approval." That phrase, "your approval," told me where Vanessa's fingerprints were. She always made women sound bureaucratic when they refused to be useful. "I need the name of the school administrator who called," I said. "Lena. Name? I don't know. The program." She was crying. "The hospital. Stop interrogating me." My voice went cold. "You stole from our daughter." He exploded then, not with guilt, with offense. "I saved someone's son. Our daughter lost the deposit for Pine Hollow on Monday. I'll replace it." "With what?" Silence. Mark had always treated future money like a moral argument. He would replace it. He would figure it out. Something would happen. The future in his mind was a generous room where consequences waited politely until he was ready. Ava did not have that luxury. "If this is real," I said, "there will be records." "There are records. Send them." He hung up. 10 minutes later, Vanessa texted me from a number I had blocked years ago, and apparently not well enough. "I know you're angry, but one day Ava may need mercy too." I stared at the message until the letters blurred. Then I screenshotted it. Vanessa had just made her first mistake. She had put the word mercy in writing like thieves do, when they want stolen things to sound holy. Vanessa had been in our marriage before I was. Not physically, not all the time, but atmospherically. She was the unfinished sentence at holidays, the vibrating phone during dinners, the woman whose crises always arrived with perfect timing. When Mark and I were newly married, she called because her furnace broke. When I was 8 months pregnant, she called because her car was being repossessed. When Ava was in the neonatal unit, she called because she had a panic attack and Mark left the hospital for 2 hours. I did not forgive that last one. I only stopped mentioning it because resentment, if spoken too often, starts to sound like personality. Vanessa was beautiful in the way certain women are beautiful, because they have never had to wonder whether attention would come. She had wide eyes, a trembling voice, and the gift of making other people's boundaries look like violence. She called Mark M in texts. She sent birthday messages at midnight. She remembered the anniversaries of their losses more faithfully than the dates of her own bills. I told myself for years that Mark's guilt was not the same as love. I still believe that. The problem is that guilt can do just as much damage. The morning after the transfer, Vanessa arrived at our house. I was not expecting her. I opened the door because I thought it was Mrs. Danvers bringing Ava home from the backyard. Instead, Vanessa stood on my porch wearing a cream coat, no makeup except mascara, eyes red in the exact way that announces either grief or performance. "We need to talk," she said. "No." She glanced past me into the house. "Where, Mark?" "Not here." That was true. He had gone to work or claimed to. I had not asked for details because I did not trust any answer he gave. Vanessa folded her arms around herself. "I didn't want this to become hostile. You took my daughter's trust money. I accepted help for my son, from a fund that was not yours to touch." Her face changed then just slightly. The softness thinned. "Mark wanted to help. Mark was manipulated. Mark is a grown man." That was the first honest thing she said. I nearly closed the door. She put one hand against it. "Caleb was in danger," she said. "From what?" She looked down, then back up. "It's private. $46,000 from my daughter is not private." "You always do this. You turn pain into paperwork." I stepped onto the porch and pulled the door shut behind me so Ava would not hear if she came in. The air smelled like wet leaves and somebody's dryer vent. Normal life around an abnormal conversation. "Name the emergency program," I said. Vanessa's eyes filled. She was good. I will give her that. The tears rose without ruining her face. "You think because Ava has needs, no other child can." I felt the cruelty of the bait and refused it. "I think because Ava has a trust, you saw an opening." Her mouth tightened. For 1 second, the mask slipped. Then a car door slammed at the curb. Mark. He must have left work when she called him. Of course he had. He came up the walk fast. already angry, already positioned between us before he knew what had been said. "What are you doing?" he asked me. "Not her. Me." That one word, "you," did something permanent. Vanessa turned toward him with a small broken sound. He touched her shoulder. It was not intimate exactly. It was worse, reflexive, trained. The way a dog returns to a whistle. "She came here to intimidate me," Vanessa said. I laughed once. Mark flinched like my laugh was uglier than her lie. "Lena," he said, "go inside." That was when I realized the money was not the only thing he had given her. He had given her authority over the story. So I took out my phone, opened the camera, and began recording. Vanessa stopped crying. Interesting, I thought. Very interesting. Pine Hollow called on Monday at 10:06 a.m. I knew because I had spent the morning watching the clock like it was a judge. The deposit deadline was noon. I had already called 3 relatives, 2 credit unions, and the emergency scholarship coordinator. Everyone was kind. Kindness did not produce $14,000. Ava sat at the kitchen table tracing bird shapes in a workbook. She had drawn a cardinal with a blue tail because she said red birds were probably tired of being predictable. Her hair was clipped back with 2 yellow barrettes. She was humming, which meant she felt safe enough to make sound. I answered the phone in the laundry room. "Mrs. Harrow," said admissions director Celeste Pike, "I'm so sorry. There are sentences you hear before they are completed." She explained that the board could not hold Ava's place without the deposit. The wait list was long. Another family was prepared. If funding changed, we could reapply for spring, but she could not promise availability. I thanked her. I don't know why. Women are trained to thank the person closing the door as long as they sound sad doing it. When I came back to the kitchen, Ava had colored the cardinal's feet green. "Pine," she asked. One word, hope shaped like a question. I sat beside her. Ava did not like direct lies. She could feel them even when she could not name them. So I told a gentler truth. Pine Hollow has to wait. She looked at me. Her eyes did not widen. Her mouth did not tremble. People who do not understand children, like Ava think distress, always announces itself loudly. She put down the green pencil. Then she slid the workbook away. Then she pushed both hands under her thighs and rocked once, hard. "Ava," I said softly. "Wait," she said. "I know. Pine, wait." "Yes." She stood so suddenly the chair tipped backward. The sound cracked through the kitchen. She covered her ears and began to make the low keening noise she had not made in 8 months. I went to the floor with her. She did not want to be touched. She wanted pressure but not hands. She wanted silence but not absence. I sat beside her, palms flat on the tile, breathing slowly where she could see it. The dryer buzzed and made everything worse. I lunged to stop it, crawling because standing would feel too sudden. Ava rocked harder. By the time she calmed, the cardinal page was crumpled under her knee. Mark came home at noon because Vanessa had told him I was spiraling. He found us on the kitchen floor. For one brief second, something like horror crossed his face. He saw his daughter, red-cheeked and exhausted, curled against the cabinet. He saw me beside her with a wet sleeve from where I had wiped apple juice off the tile after she knocked over the cup. He saw the chair on its side. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at it. The horror retreated behind obligation. "I need to take this," he whispered. I stood carefully. My legs were shaking. "No." He looked annoyed, as if I had interrupted an important meeting, rather than a collapse his choices had caused. "It's Vanessa." "I know. She says Caleb won't come out of his room." Ava lost Pine Hollow. His face went blank. "What?" "Because you gave the deposit to Vanessa. That's temporary. Our daughter's spot is gone." He looked toward Ava. She did not look back. She had pulled the ruined bird page into her lap and was smoothing it with both hands, over and over, trying to make the crease disappear. Mark whispered, "I'll fix it." I said, "You keep saying that after breaking things." His phone buzzed again. This time, he did not answer, but he kept holding it. And that was enough to tell me he had not yet understood the difference between silence and choosing. Vanessa produced the receipt on Tuesday. Not to me, to Mark. That mattered because she knew which audience still wanted to believe her. He came home with a white envelope and placed it on the counter like a peace offering. Ava was in the living room lining up plastic birds by wingspan. I had spent the day calling Pine Hollow, begging for a payment extension that did not exist, and applying for a loan I knew would not clear in time. "What is that?" I asked. "Proof." The envelope contained a single page with a hospital logo, a transaction number, Caleb's name, and the amount, $46,800. Payment received. Emergency stabilization deposit. The signature at the bottom was a printed name I did not recognize. I looked at it for less than 10 seconds. This is fake. Mark's expression hardened so quickly, I knew he had been waiting for it. You didn't even look. I looked. You wanted it to be fake. I wanted our daughter's money not to be stolen. He pointed at the page. It says paid. It says paid in a font the hospital does not use. He stared. I had spent too many years filling out medical forms to be impressed by fake letterhead. Hospitals had systems. Receipts had codes. Insurance departments used language no normal person would invent because bureaucracies developed their own dialects. This document looked like someone had searched hospital receipt template and added a logo. Call the hospital, I said. Vanessa asked us not to. She said Caleb is embarrassed. Embarrassment does not cancel verification. Mark closed his eyes. God, Lena. I picked up my phone. What are you doing? Calling. He grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise. Hard enough to change the marriage. We both froze. He released me immediately. I didn't mean. Step away from me. Lena, step away. Ava stopped arranging birds. From the living room came the tiny sound of plastic touching hardwood. One bird falling over. Then another. Mark heard it too. Shame passed across his face, fast and useless. I took the receipt, photographed it, and walked into the bedroom. I locked the door. My hands shook so badly it took 3 tries to dial the billing office number printed on the page. It did not exist. The real hospital number connected me to a woman named Rhonda in patient accounts, who listened patiently until I read the transaction number. That is not one of ours, she said. Can you check by patient name? I'm not able to discuss a minor's account unless you're authorized. I understand. Can you tell me whether your receipts ever use this format? I emailed her the page. She went quiet after opening it. Ma'am, she said carefully, I can't speak to the circumstances, but this did not originate from our office. I sat on the edge of the bed and closed my eyes. Thank you. Do you need our fraud department contact? The word fraud felt like a hand on my shoulder. Not comfort, direction. Yes, I said, I do. When I came out, Mark was sitting on the stairs with his head in his hands. It's fake, I said. He looked up. No. Yes. No, she wouldn't do that. She did. You don't know that. I know the receipt is fake. He stood. Maybe the hospital uses different systems. Mark. Maybe someone there made a mistake. Mark. Maybe Vanessa was fooled too. There it was. The next bridge he built for her. Even when the lie burned in his hands, he tried to carry her across it. I looked at the man I had married, the father of my child, and felt something inside me go terribly still. If you protect her from this, I said, you lose me. He whispered, don't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm locating myself. Then I walked past him to the living room, where Ava was trying to stand all the birds back up, one by one, as if order could still be restored by careful hands. Maple Ridge Academy looked like a place built to keep donors calm. Brick arches, polished brass signs, seasonal mums by the entrance, a flag at half-staff for reasons no one explained. I had never been inside before because Caleb was not my child and Vanessa had never encouraged overlap unless she needed an audience. I arrived at 8:15 Wednesday morning with a folder under my arm and anger, so contained it felt almost professional. The receptionist smiled until I said Vanessa Bell. Then her face performed a tiny administrative shutdown. I'm afraid we can't discuss student matters with non-guardians. I'm not asking about student records, I said. I'm asking whether an emergency occurred on Thursday involving Caleb Bell. I can't confirm or deny. Was an ambulance called? She hesitated. That was enough to draw attention from a woman crossing the lobby with a tablet in her hand. Mid-50s, silver bob, navy suit, eyes like she had spent 30 years watching parents lie in expensive shoes. I'm Principal Hayes, she said. You are. Lena Harrow. Her expression changed. Not much. Enough. Mrs. Harrow, why don't you come with me? Her office smelled like coffee and old paper. On the wall were framed photos of graduating classes and a poster that said character is what you do when no one is watching. I nearly laughed at the irony. Principal Hayes closed the door. I received a call from hospital fraud yesterday, she said. My grip tightened around the folder. Then you know why I'm here. I know there appears to be a forged document involving our school's name indirectly. I also know Vanessa Bell has been calling our office asking whether security footage deletes automatically after a certain number of days. The room sharpened. She asked that. This morning, I sat down. Principal Hayes did not. There was no medical emergency involving Caleb last Thursday. No ambulance. No fight. No collapse. He was marked present until early dismissal. Who dismissed him? His mother. At what time? 2:43 p.m. Mark had withdrawn the cashier's check at 4:12. What reason did she give? Principal Hayes looked at the tablet. Family emergency. I laughed once. It sounded nothing like humor. Can I see the footage? No. My hope dropped. Not without proper authorization, she continued. But I can preserve it. And if a court order or law enforcement request arrives, it will be available. What does it show? She studied me for a moment. I need to be careful. Please. Her face softened, but her voice stayed firm. It shows enough that I suggest you contact an attorney today. I pressed both hands around the folder to keep them steady. Does it show Mark? She did not answer. That was an answer. I looked at the character poster again. What you do when no one is watching. Except someone had been watching. A school camera tucked above a trophy case, maybe. A lens in a parking lot. A machine that did not care who cried first or who used the word family like a weapon. Principal Hayes finally sat across from me. I don't know your situation, she said. But I have watched Vanessa Bell perform emergencies in this building for 4 years. Some parents come in worried. Some come in angry. Vanessa comes in staged. The relief of being believed was so sudden it hurt. She took my daughter's trust money, I said. Principal Hayes closed her eyes briefly. I'm sorry. I need the footage. You need a lawyer who knows how to subpoena it correctly. If you try to get it informally, Vanessa will claim harassment. She is already preparing that narrative. Of course she was. She had probably been preparing it since before the transfer. When I stood to leave, Principal Hayes handed me a business card with the name Dana Cross, Family and Trust Litigation. She helped another parent here last year, she said. Quiet, sharp, and impossible to intimidate. I took the card. In the lobby, my phone buzzed. Mark, where are you? For the first time in days, I did not answer. I walked out into the cold morning with Dana Cross's card in one hand and the beginning of a war in the other. Dana Cross did not look impossible to intimidate. She was small, tidy, and wore a cardigan with embroidered violets on the sleeves. Her office had children's drawings on one wall, legal certificates on another, and a ceramic bowl of peppermints on her desk. She looked like someone's favorite aunt until she started asking questions. Then she became a knife. How did Mark access the trust? Secondary trustee authority. What were the stated conditions for distributions? Ava's education, medical, therapy, adaptive equipment, and related care. Does Caleb qualify under any clause? No. Did Mark document the distribution as Ava-related? I hesitated. Priya had given me the withdrawal form. I slid it across the desk. Dana read it. Her mouth flattened. What? I asked. He wrote emergency, child care intervention. That is vague. It is intentionally vague. I felt sick. Could he argue he thought it was allowed? He can argue the moon is a dinner plate. The question is whether a judge enjoys fiction. That was the first time I smiled in days. Dana's paralegal drafted preservation letters to the bank, Maple Ridge, the hospital, and Vanessa before I left the office. The tone was polite in the way legal letters are polite when they are actually putting a hand around someone's throat. At 4:30, Dana called. School counsel responded faster than expected, and they will preserve footage from the main lobby, east hallway, and parking lot for the full afternoon. Can we get it? Not yet, but Principal Hayes provided a sworn incident timeline. I sat down on my bedroom floor because my knees had become unreliable. Dana continued. Caleb was not injured. No crisis team was called. Vanessa requested early dismissal at 2:43 p.m. He left calmly. At 3:06 p.m., exterior camera shows Vanessa in the west parking lot with Mark. My chest tightened. Mark was there. Yes, he told me he was at work. His truck is visible. I stared at the wall. There are betrayals you suspect and betrayals that become real only when someone else says them aloud. What are they doing? Dana paused. The summary says Vanessa appears to hand Mark a folder. Mark appears to hand Vanessa an envelope. Caleb is visible in the passenger seat of Vanessa's car using a phone. He does not appear distressed. The room tilted. Mark had not simply believed her. He had met her. He had taken a folder from her. He had given her the cashier's check or something close enough that the footage mattered. "What folder?" I whispered. "That is what we will find out." Ava knocked twice on the bedroom door. Our signal. I wiped my face quickly and opened it. She stood holding her communication tablet. The screen said, "Mom sad." I knelt. "Yes." She pressed another button. "Bird." It meant, do we need a bird fact? Bird facts were how Ava offered comfort. I smiled because grief and love can occupy the same second. "Please." She looked at the ceiling, thinking. "Crows remember faces," she said, each word careful. "They do. Bad faces." I almost laughed. Then I almost cried. "Yes, honey, they remember bad faces too." That evening, Mark came home with takeout and a rehearsed softness. He set the bags on the counter, kissed Ava's hair, and asked whether we could reset. The word made me look at him. "Reset? I know things got heated. Did you meet Vanessa at Maple Ridge?" His face emptied. Not shock, calculation. That was worse. "I can explain." I turned away because if I looked at him too long, I might forget that Ava was in the room. "You can explain to my lawyer." He whispered my name. I took Ava's hand and led her upstairs. Behind us, Mark stood in the kitchen beside the cooling takeout, finally understanding that the story had moved out of his control. The footage arrived 2 weeks later. By then, Mark was sleeping in the guest room. Vanessa had stopped texting me directly, and Ava had started asking why Daddy's shoes were by the wrong door. I told her adults were figuring out a hard problem. She accepted that because children often accept what they should never have to carry. Dana called me to her office on a rainy Friday. "Are you sure you want to watch?" she asked. "No." She nodded. "That is probably the correct answer." We watched anyway. The first video was lobby footage. Vanessa entering Maple Ridge at 2:39 p.m. wearing a camel coat and carrying a red folder. She moved quickly but not panicked. The receptionist stood. Vanessa put a hand dramatically to her chest. No audio, but the performance translated perfectly. Caleb appeared at 2:46. Tall, dark-haired, earbuds in, bored, not injured, not crying, not collapsed. He checked his phone while Vanessa spoke to Principal Hayes with one hand on his shoulder like a mother in a tragedy poster. The second clip was East Hallway. Vanessa and Caleb walking out. Caleb laughing at something on his screen. The third was the west parking lot. Mark's truck pulled in at 3:04. I had to stop the video. Dana waited. I stared at the frozen image of my husband stepping out of his truck in the school parking lot. Wearing the blue work jacket he had later hung in our mudroom, as if it had not been part of a crime. "Keep going," I said. Vanessa approached him. Caleb stayed in the car. Vanessa opened the red folder. Mark looked at the papers inside. He did not appear shocked. He did not appear rushed. He nodded. Then Mark took an envelope from inside his jacket. "My mother's trust. Ava's bridge. $46,800 reduced to a rectangle passing between two adults in a parking lot." Vanessa hugged him. He did not push her away. He closed his eyes. That was the part that broke something in me. Not the envelope. Not even the hug. The eyes. The relief on his face when Vanessa wrapped her arms around him, as if being needed by her had given him something he could not get from the quiet daily work of fatherhood. The school camera had no sound, but the parking lot had an old security microphone near the staff entrance. Dana warned me the audio was faint. She turned it on. Rain hissed, a car passed. Caleb's music thumped from inside the car. Then Vanessa's voice, clear enough. "She'll scream, but she always folds when it's for a child." Mark said something too low to catch. Vanessa laughed. That laugh. It was not scared. It was not desperate. It was light, satisfied, almost intimate. "By Monday," she said. "She'll be too busy fighting the school to fight us." Us. I replayed that word until Dana gently reached over and stopped the video. My body felt far away. "I need you to breathe," she said. "I am breathing. You are not." I inhaled because she told me to. Dana printed still frames. Vanessa touching the folder. Mark handing the envelope. Caleb laughing. The time stamp. The trust withdrawal form. The fake receipt. Each page slid into a binder until Betrayal became organized. On the drive home, I pulled over twice. Not because I could not see through tears, though that was true. Because I kept hearing Vanessa say us, and each time the road ahead seemed to narrow. Mark was sitting on the porch when I got home. He stood when he saw my face. "You watched it," he said. "Yes." "Lena." She laughed. He flinched. "She said I would fold." I didn't hear that part. You were there. I didn't know she meant. You were there. The words left me quietly. That made them worse. He looked down. Ava's bedroom window glowed above us. I could see the paper birds taped to the glass, crooked and bright. You helped her steal from our daughter, I said. Mark whispered. I thought I was helping a kid. No, I said. You were helping yourself feel chosen. Then I walked past him into the house and locked the door. For the first time, I locked him outside. Mark did not come in that night. He slept in his truck or at his brother or at Vanessa's. I did not ask. Around midnight, he texted, "We need to talk like adults." I wrote back, "Adults don't steal from children." He did not answer. The next morning, his mother called, then his sister, then a cousin I had met twice. This is how toxic families move, not as people, but as weather. A front comes in, pressure changes. Suddenly, everyone is calling you unreasonable from different area codes. His mother said Mark made a mistake. His sister said Vanessa had manipulated everyone. His cousin said court would traumatize Ava. I let each of them speak long enough to reveal who had briefed them. Then I asked one question. Did Mark tell you the school camera caught him handing Vanessa the envelope? Silence. Every time. By noon, Mark arrived with his brother Eric and a suitcase. Eric stood near the curb, embarrassed and useless. Mark came to the door. I opened it with the chain on. His eyes went to the chain first. That's dramatic, he said. So is stealing Ava's trust. He inhaled sharply. I did not steal. You knowingly gave restricted trust money to a woman who lied about an emergency. I didn't know it was fake. You met her at the school before the withdrawal. She had papers. Fake papers. I didn't know. Then why hide it from me? His face changed. The small change of a man arriving at the wall he cannot climb. Because I knew you'd say no. There it was. Not innocence. Intent. I let the silence hold it. From inside, Ava called, "Mom." I turned. 1 minute bird. Mark's face crumpled at the nickname. He loved the evidence of intimacy when it did not demand sacrifice from him. I need clothes, he said. I packed them. You packed my clothes. They're in the garage. This is still my house. No, this is Ava's safe place, and you made it unsafe. He leaned closer to the gap in the door. You're turning her against me. Vanessa used that line too early. Try another. Color rose in his face. For a second, I saw the man Vanessa had trained in him. Defensive, cornered, willing to wound if it restored control. You think a judge is going to take your side because you cry better. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I closed the door. He knocked once, then again. Lena. I did not answer. Ava stood in the hallway, holding a paper crow. Daddy mad? Yes. Mom safe? Yes. She considered that. Ava safe? I knelt immediately. Yes, Ava is safe. She looked toward the door. Daddy safe? The question nearly took my breath. I wanted to say yes because children deserve fathers whose love does not require footnotes. But I had promised myself never to make Ava carry a lie just because it was easier. Daddy is not making safe choices right now, I said. Ava pressed the crow into my hand. Crows remember, she said. I remember too. That afternoon, Dana filed for emergency removal of Mark's trustee authority, temporary exclusive use of the house, and an injunction preventing further contact with the trust assets. The language was cold and clean. It turned my fear into numbered paragraphs. At 5:30, Mark sent one last text. If you do this, there is no going back. I stared at it for a long time. Then I wrote, that was true when you handed her the envelope. I blocked his number after that. Not forever. Not because I wanted drama. Because I needed one night in my own house where every buzz of my phone did not feel like another person asking me to make betrayal more convenient for them. That night, Ava slept with 3 paper birds under her pillow. I slept on the floor outside her room. Neither of us slept well, but the house was quiet. And quiet, after a week of lies, felt almost like mercy. The courthouse smelled like wet wool and copier toner. I wore the navy dress I usually saved for parent conferences and funerals. Dana said judges liked clarity, not costume. Vanessa arrived in winter white, which told me everything. Mark wore a suit I had picked out years earlier for a baptism. He looked smaller inside it. The emergency hearing was not supposed to decide everything. Dana explained that 3 times. It would determine immediate control, trustee authority, access to accounts, who stayed in the house, whether Ava's remaining funds were protected while litigation unfolded. Still, when the judge entered, my hands went numb. Judge Marable Tours had silver hair, a narrow face, and no patience for theatrical grief. I learned that within 5 minutes, when Vanessa's attorney referred to a desperate mother seeking aid for a vulnerable boy, and the judge interrupted. "Counsel, I asked what legal basis Mrs. Bell had to receive funds from Ava Harrow's trust." The attorney blinked. "I'm providing context. You are providing fog. Answer the question." I loved her a little. Dana stood and laid out the timeline: trust restrictions, withdrawal, cashier's check, fake hospital receipt, Maple Ridge footage preserved, Mark's meeting with Vanessa, Pine Hollow deposit lost, Ava's needs, my mother's intent. Each fact landed like a stone. Mark's attorney tried to argue good faith. He said Mark believed there was an emergency involving a minor. He said parents under stress make imperfect decisions. He said the funds had been used, as far as Mark understood, to prevent harm to a child. Judge Torres looked over her glasses. "Which child?" The room went still. The attorney shuffled papers. "Caleb Bell. And Caleb Bell is a beneficiary of this trust." "No, Your Honor." "Related to the beneficiary?" "No." "Legally dependent on Mr. Harrow?" "No." "Then continue carefully." Mark looked at the table. Vanessa dabbed her eyes with a tissue that appeared unused. Dana requested permission to play a short segment of the parking lot audio. Vanessa's attorney objected. The judge allowed it for limited purpose, not final evidentiary weight. The courtroom speaker crackled. "Rain," Caleb's music, Vanessa's voice. "She'll scream, but she always folds when it's for a child." I felt the room hear it. Not just the words, the tone. Vanessa stopped dabbing. Mark closed his eyes. The judge asked to hear it again. Dana played it. By the second time, Vanessa's white coat looked less like innocence and more like a costume under bad lighting. Judge Torres ruled quickly. Mark's trustee authority suspended pending full hearing. Trust account frozen except for court-approved Ava expenses. Emergency order requiring Vanessa to preserve all related records. Exclusive use of the marital home granted to me and Ava for 90 days. Mark permitted supervised visitation until further family court review. Mark's head snapped up at that. "Supervised," he said before his attorney could stop him. Judge Torres looked at him. "You removed nearly $50,000 from your daughter's protected trust to give to your former spouse, then concealed material facts from the child's primary caregiver. Supervision is not punishment. It is caution." He sat back down. Caution, a gentler word than he deserved. Outside the courtroom, Vanessa approached me near the elevators. "You're proud of yourself," she said. Dana moved closer, but I held up a hand. "No," I said. "I am tired." Vanessa's face hardened. "You don't know what Mark and I have been through." I looked at her winter white coat, her expensive bag, her eyes already searching the hallway for witnesses. "You are going to learn something now," I said. "Pain does not make you the owner of every room you enter." For once, she had no immediate line. The elevator opened. I stepped inside with Dana. As the doors closed, I saw Mark watching us from across the hall. And for the first time since this began, he did not look angry. He looked afraid. Good, I thought. Fear, when it arrives late, is still information. Caleb broke the story open by accident. He was 15, which meant adults had underestimated both his carelessness and his exhaustion. Vanessa had built him into her tragedy, but teenagers are poor props. They have phones, tempers, and friends who record things without understanding why the recording will matter later. 3 days after the emergency hearing, Dana called me at school during lunch. "Are you sitting down?" "No." "Sit." I sat on a plastic chair in the copy room while the machine blinked ad paper. Caleb posted something to a private group chat. One of the parents at Maple Ridge saw it because her son showed her. It is now with school council. What did he post? A video from the car that day. My stomach turned. Is he hurt? No, he is irritated. That's not an answer. It is, unfortunately, very relevant. The video came to Dana through school council an hour later. She would not send it to me until she had reviewed it. When she finally invited me to her office, I knew it was bad for Vanessa from the way Dana's violet cardigan had been replaced by a black blazer. The video was vertical, shot from Caleb's passenger seat. Vanessa was outside the car hugging Mark. Caleb angled the phone toward himself first, making a face. "My mom's doing her Oscar thing," he whispered. Then he flipped the camera slightly. Through the rain-streaked window, Mark handed Vanessa the envelope. Caleb snorted. 46 grand because she told him I'm going to wilderness jail or whatever. I'm literally going to Tyler, after this. A boy's voice from the phone speaker, probably on FaceTime, said, "Dude, your mom is insane." Caleb grinned. "Yeah, but she's good at it." Then Vanessa got into the car. The phone dropped toward Caleb's lap, but it kept recording. Vanessa said, "Delete that. Relax. Caleb, it's just Tyler. You do not record family business." Caleb muttered something. Then Vanessa said, clear as glass, "That woman was going to spend it on bird therapy anyway." My breath stopped. Bird therapy. Ava's speech program used bird identification because it motivated her language. Vanessa had mocked it once at a barbecue, chirping at Ava until I moved my daughter inside, and Mark told me Vanessa was only trying to connect. On the video, Caleb laughed. The laughter hurt less than Mark's silence in the background. He heard it. He was standing right there, under the edge of the awning, and he did not defend his daughter. Dana stopped the video. "I'm sorry." I stared at the frozen image, Vanessa's dashboard. "Play the rest." "Lena, play it." There was not much more. Vanessa told Caleb he owed her silence because she had kept him at Maple Ridge after his father stopped paying support. Caleb said, "You mean after Mark started paying for half my stuff?" Vanessa snapped that Mark liked being needed, and Lena never understood how to use that. Use that. I wanted to throw up. Dana did not speak for a while after the clip ended. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now Vanessa has a problem that is no longer only civil." Mark has a different problem. "What kind?" "The kind where a court hears exactly how much he heard before he decided to call it mercy." I left Dana's office at dusk. In the car, I called Mrs. Danvers and asked if Ava could stay another hour. Then I sat with the heater on and screamed. Not cried, screamed. A raw, ugly sound that fogged the windshield and left my throat burning. By the time I drove home, my voice was gone. Ava met me at the door, holding a paper crow and a paper cardinal. "Two birds," she said. "I see. One loud, one quiet." I knelt, exhausted beyond language. "Which one am I?" She placed the crow in my hand. "Loud later," she said. I held that little black paper bird and understood my daughter better than any adult in the story. Yes, I would be loud later. In court. My mother had left another envelope. I found it because grief makes you avoid boxes until crisis turns them into evidence. It was in the cedar chest at the foot of our bed, beneath baby blankets, Ava's hospital bracelet, and a stack of cards my mother had written but never sent because she said emotional mail should sit overnight before traveling. The envelope had my name on it. "Lena, if the bridge is ever threatened." I sat on the floor with the chest open and felt the room tilt. Inside were 3 pages in my mother's handwriting and a copy of the trust summary with yellow highlights. Her letters always began without small talk. "If you are reading this, someone has tried to convince you that Ava's money should be used for a louder need." I covered my mouth. My mother had known Mark well enough to love him and distrust him at the same time. That balance had seemed cruel when she was alive. Now it felt like prophecy. She wrote that generosity without boundaries becomes a feeding ground. She wrote that Mark's weakness was not a lack of love, but a hunger to be seen as good by people who did not have to live with the consequences of his goodness. She wrote that Vanessa had called her once, months before the trust was finalized, asking whether family emergencies could be covered if Mark approved. I read that line 3 times. Vanessa had been circling the money before my mother died. There was more. My mother had documented the call. Date, time, number, wording. She had sent a memo to Priya, and the drafting attorney instructing them to define distributions narrowly and to notify me of any secondary trustee inquiry over $10,000. But Mark's withdrawal had been issued as a cashier's check after he appeared in person with the emergency form and my mother's death certificate copy. Priya had followed bank policy. The trust language had slowed him. It had not stopped him. The last page was for me, not the court. "You are allowed to protect your child from people you love. You are allowed to be called harsh by those who benefit from your softness. You are allowed to let a man be disappointed in you if the alternative is letting your daughter be endangered by his need to be admired. Do not confuse peace with safety. They are not the same thing." I cried then, quietly at first, then with my whole body. Ava found me there. She did not ask what was wrong. She climbed into my lap with difficulty because she was getting too big for it and still fit because she was mine. She touched the paper. "Grandma." "Yes." "Grandma words." "Yes." I read the last paragraph aloud slowly, changing only the words that were too heavy. You can keep children safe, even when adults are mad. Ava rested her head against my shoulder. Grandma smart. She was. Daddy mad. Yes. Mom keep safe. I'm trying. Ava pulled back and looked at me with serious eyes. Mom do. Not try, do. I kissed her forehead. That night I sent scans to Dana. She called 15 minutes later. Your mother was a remarkable woman. Yes. This call from Vanessa matters. It establishes prior interest, possible intent. She asked about emergencies before the trust was final, which means this may not be impulse. It may be pattern. Pattern. That word followed me into sleep. The next morning, Mark emailed. Dana had likely sent his attorney the letter. I didn't know Vanessa called your mother. No apology, just distance. The beginning of a man trying to move the lie away from himself. I wrote back one sentence. You knew she laughed at bird therapy. He did not reply. Some silences confess more than words. Mark came home without warning on a Thursday night. The temporary order said he had to arrange visits through Dana, but the house was still legally half his, and locks do not change history as quickly as fear wants them to. I was washing Ava's lunch containers when I heard his key in the back door. For 1 second, my body forgot it had learned anything. Then I moved. Go to your room, I signed to Ava. She was at the table cutting paper wings. She froze. Now, I said aloud, gentle but firm. She went. Mark stepped into the kitchen looking like a man who had slept badly in several different houses. His beard had grown in unevenly. His coat smelled like rain and fast food. He held both hands up as if I were the dangerous one. I just want to talk. You cannot be here. It's my home. It is Ava's protected residence under temporary order. His mouth twisted. Dana teach you that. Leave. He looked toward the stairs. Is she afraid of me? I did not answer quickly enough. The truth moved across his face and hurt him. Good. Some truths should. I never wanted to scare her, he said. But you did. I made a mistake. You committed a breach of trust. Stop talking like your lawyer. Then stop behaving like a defendant. He flinched. For a moment I saw the old Mark, the man who used to bring me tea during grading weeks, the father who cried when Ava signed Daddy the first time. He was still in there. That was the cruelty of it. Monsters are easier. A monster does not make pancakes shaped like moons. A monster does not know exactly how your child likes the hallway light left on. Mark sat at the kitchen table without permission. I watched Caleb's video, he said. My hands tightened on the dish towel. All of it. He nodded. Then you heard her. Yes. You heard her call Ava's therapy bird therapy. Yes. You heard her say she used your need to be needed. He closed his eyes. Yes. The dishwasher hummed. Upstairs, one floorboard creaked. Ava near the landing, listening. I pretended not to hear so she would not feel caught. Why are you here? I asked. Because I don't know how to undo it. The answer was so small, I almost sat down. Almost. You cannot undo it. I know. No, you don't. You are still looking for the door where this becomes a bad week instead of a broken marriage. His face crumpled. I love you. I believe you. That hurt him more than if I had denied it. I sat across from him because standing felt too much like battle, and I was tired of battle in my kitchen. You loved us while handing Vanessa the envelope. You loved Ava while letting Vanessa mock her. You loved me while telling people I was cruel. Love did not stop you. His eyes filled. What do I do? Tell the truth. I am. To the court, to your family, to Pine Hollow, to Ava when she is old enough. Not the version where you were tricked. The version where you wanted to be a savior so badly you let our daughter become collateral. He covered his face. I don't know if I can say that. Then you are not ready to come home. Ava appeared at the foot of the stairs, holding a paper crow. Mark turned. She did not come closer. Daddy loud, she asked. He swallowed. No, Bird, Daddy is leaving. She looked at me for confirmation. I nodded. Mark stood slowly. At the back door he stopped. I'll tell Dana I came. I'll tell my lawyer not to fight the footage. That was the first useful thing he had said in weeks. Good. He opened the door. Before he stepped out, Ava spoke again. Daddy Truth. He turned, wrecked. Yes, he whispered. Daddy Truth. He left. I locked the door behind him. Ava placed the crow on the table and pressed it flat with both hands. Crows remember, she said. Yes. But that night, for the first time, I wondered whether remembering had to mean staying angry forever. Then I remembered Pine Hollow, and the money, and Vanessa's laugh. No, I thought. Forgiveness could wait. Safety could not. Pine Hollow gave Ava her place back because Celeste Pike broke policy. She never said that directly. People in education rarely confess mercy on paper. She called it an exceptional board reconsideration due to documented financial interference. I called it the first good news in weeks. There was one condition: deposit within 10 business days. The trust was still frozen except for court-approved expenses, so Dana filed an emergency petition. Judge Torres approved payment directly to Pine Hollow within 24 hours. When I told Ava, she stared at me for a long time. Pine not wait. Pine says yes. She blinked fast. Her joy was quiet and physical. Fingers opening and closing, shoulders lifting. A tiny bounce she tried to hide because big feelings embarrassed her. Bird room, she asked. Yes, they still have the bird room. She ran upstairs and returned with every paper bird she had made since the fund disappeared. Crows, cardinals, owls, a blue-tailed cardinal, and one bird I could not identify with flames on its wings. For Pine, she said. I cried in the pantry, so she would not think joy made me sad. The school boardroom at Pine Hollow was smaller than I expected. Celeste met us there with 2 teachers, the finance director, and a therapist named Mr. Owen, who immediately crouched to Ava's level without demanding eye contact. That alone made me want to hand him my entire heart. Ava held my hand for the first 10 minutes. Then she saw a poster of migratory birds and stepped away. Arctic tern, she said. Mr. Owen smiled. Longest migration. Ava looked at him sharply, reassessing. Yes, that was how trust began for my daughter. Not with warmth, with accuracy. While Ava examined the poster, Celeste reviewed the transition plan. Shorter first days, sensory map, communication tablet integration, bird-based language prompts. I listened and felt my body slowly realize we were not being judged. We were being helped. Then Mark arrived. I had not invited him. Celeste looked at me. I looked at Dana, who had come as both lawyer and witness. Dana's face did not change, but her pen stopped moving. Mark stood in the doorway, holding a folder. I asked if I could come, he said. Celeste said only if you agreed. Everyone waited. Ava saw him and went still. That decided it. 5 minutes, I said. Mark entered as if the air might reject him. He crouched near Ava, but not too close. Hi, bird. She looked at his folder. What? He opened it. Inside were printed photos of birds, laminated and labeled. Crow, tern, cardinal, heron, falcon. I made these for Pine, he said. Only if you want them. Ava did not take them. Daddy Truth, she asked. The room went silent in that adult way, where everyone pretends not to hear what matters most. Mark looked at me. I did not help him. He turned back to Ava. Daddy made a very wrong choice, he said carefully. I gave money that was for you to someone else. I thought I was helping, but I hurt you. I am trying to tell the truth and make it right. Ava processed that. Money for Pine. Yes, Daddy took Pine. His face changed. Yes, he whispered. Daddy took Pine. No softening, no passive voice. No Vanessa made me. No mistake without subject. Ava looked at the bird cards. Then she took the crow. Only the crow. Mark accepted that like a sentence. After he left, Celeste dabbed at her eye and pretended she had allergies. Dana wrote something on her legal pad. What? I asked. Nothing. Dana. She glanced at Ava, then back at me. Sometimes the record should show when someone starts telling the truth. I did not know whether that truth would save my marriage, but I knew it had mattered to Ava, and that was the only audience Mark needed to earn. The full evidentiary hearing lasted 2 days. Vanessa dressed in gray this time, perhaps having learned that winter white looked bad against security footage. Mark came with his attorney and no family. That told me something. His mother had finally heard the audio. His sister had received Dana's packet. The cousin who worried about Ava's trauma had stopped calling. Evidence has a wonderful way of shrinking audiences. Dana began with the trust. My mother's intent. Ava's needs. Mark's secondary authority. Then Priya testified about the withdrawal. The hospital fraud contact testified about the fake receipt. Principal Hayes testified with the calm precision of a woman who had been waiting years for Vanessa to meet a consequence. Then the courtroom lights dimmed. The screen lowered. The judge watched Vanessa enter Maple Ridge. Watched Caleb leave uninjured. Watched Mark's truck pull in. Watched the folder. Watched the envelope. Watched the hug. When the audio played, the room seemed to lean toward it. She'll scream. but she always folds when it's for a child. Vanessa stared at the table. Mark looked at the screen, as if punishment required him not to look away. Then Caleb's video. My mom's doing her Oscar thing. The judge's face did not move. 46 grand. Because she told him, I'm going to wilderness jail, or whatever. Vanessa's attorney closed his eyes. Bird therapy. I felt Dana's hand touch my sleeve under the table, not comfort exactly. Anchor. Mark cried during that part. I did not look at him. Vanessa testified last. It was a mistake. Her attorney must have known. But clients like Vanessa often believe their own performance more than legal strategy. She said she had been afraid for Caleb. She said Mark offered help freely. She said she did not know the receipt was fake, that Ryan must have misunderstood, that everyone was twisting her words. Dana stood for cross-examination with one sheet of paper. Mrs. Bell, did you call Lena Harrow's mother before Ava's trust was finalized? Vanessa blinked. No. Dana showed the phone memo. Would you like to revise that? Vanessa's jaw tightened. I might have called to understand family support options. For emergencies. I don't remember. Dana played the parking lot audio again. Is that your voice? I was emotional. You were laughing. I laugh when nervous. Dana played Caleb's video. My mom's doing her Oscar thing. Does your son also misunderstand your nervous laughter? Vanessa's attorney objected. Sustained. Damage done. Dana moved closer. Did you use the money for Caleb's emergency placement? I intended to. Where is the placement invoice? I was still deciding. Did you give any of the money to Ryan Holt? He helped with paperwork. Fake paperwork. Vanessa's eyes flashed. There is nothing wrong with asking for help. No, Dana said. The wrong part was stealing a disabled child's education money, forging a hospital receipt, and letting her mother be blamed. The objection came fast. The judge did not look impressed by it. When Mark testified, he did not save himself. That surprised me. He admitted meeting Vanessa. He admitted he knew I would refuse. He admitted he did not verify the emergency because he wanted to believe there was one. He admitted hearing Vanessa mock Ava's therapy and saying nothing. Dana asked why. Mark looked at the judge, then at me. Because Vanessa made me feel important when I was useful. And I confused that with doing the right thing. The room went very still. The judge ordered full restitution, attorney fees from Vanessa and Mark jointly, permanent removal of Mark as trustee, and referral of the forged receipt and fraud evidence to the prosecutor. Vanessa was barred from contacting me, Ava, Pine Hollow, or any trust-related institution. The trust would be restored, not healed. Restored. Those are different things. As we left, Mark said my name. I turned. I know it doesn't fix anything, he said, but I told the truth. I looked at him for a long moment. Yes, I said, you did. It was not forgiveness, but it was a fact. And after months of lies, facts felt like clean water. Restitution does not arrive like justice in movies. There is no swelling music, no villain collapsing, no envelope slid across a polished table while everyone claps. Restitution arrives through court orders, payment schedules, asset freezes, garnishments, and forms with boxes too small for the damage they are trying to contain. The first payment back into Ava's trust was $12,000 from Vanessa's seized account. Priya called me personally. I wanted you to know before the notice arrives. I sat at the kitchen table with Ava's Pine Hollow calendar beside me and cried into a napkin. Not because 12,000 fixed it, because the number moved in the right direction. Mark's portion came partly from liquidating his retirement loan and partly from selling the fishing boat he had bought during the year he said we needed to cut back on therapy expenses. I had hated that boat quietly. Its sale felt like a small private poem. Vanessa's social circle unraveled faster than the legal case. Principal Hayes informed Maple Ridge families only that a parent had falsified documents and misused another child's protected funds. She did not need to name Vanessa. Vanessa named herself by sending a 6-paragraph email about persecution, motherhood, and spiritual attack. Someone forwarded it to Dana within 20 minutes. Pastor Gill, who had once asked me to soften my heart toward a scared mother, called to apologize. I let him. Then I asked whether he would say the same thing publicly to the women's committee Vanessa had cried to. He hesitated. I hung up. Later that week, he sent the statement. It was not perfect, but it had my name and Ava's name and the word wrong in the same paragraph as church gossip. That was more than most institutions manage without a lawsuit. Mark began supervised visits at a family center with murals of trees on the walls. Ava brought the crow card he had made her and placed it between them on the table. Their first visit lasted 20 minutes. She spoke 6 words. Mark told me afterward through Dana's app. She showed me the crow. I wrote back, good. I did not add what I was thinking. Do not mistake being shown a crow for being invited back into the nest. The house changed slowly. His shoes were gone from the mudroom. His coffee mug stayed in the cabinet because I could not decide whether removing it was power or performance. Ava asked fewer questions. Pine Hollow sent home reports full of cautious progress. New sounds, new signs, more bird words. One night, while we made paper owls, Ava asked, "Daddy come home?" I put down the scissors. I don't know. Mom want. Children ask simple questions, only because adults build complicated answers. I want Daddy to be safe, I said. I want our house to be safe. I want you to be safe. Ava glued one wing slightly crooked. 3 safe. Yes, 3 safe. She thought about that. Hard. Yes, I whispered. Very hard. Mark was doing what the court required. More than required sometimes. Therapy, parenting classes, written disclosures, financial restitution. No contact with Vanessa except through attorneys in the fraud case. He had blocked her before the court ordered it, which Dana said mattered less legally than emotionally. I did not know what it mattered to me. Some days, I hated him with an energy that frightened me. Some days I missed him so suddenly, I had to grip the counter. Both feelings were true. Neither feeling was a plan. The trust balance climbed in pieces. Ava's language climbed in pieces too. On the day the balance reached the amount stolen, Priya sent a confirmation letter. I placed it in the cedar chest beside my mother's envelope. Then I took it out again. Some evidence should not be buried. I framed a copy and put it in my office. Not for guests, for myself. Proof that what was taken could be returned. Proof that returned did not mean unbroken. Proof that my mother's bridge had held, even under the weight of all of us. A house without a husband is not quiet right away. At first it is full of echoes. The garage door that does not rise at 6. The second towel that stays folded. The absence of someone clearing his throat before saying something he hopes will not become an argument. Even relief has a sound, and sometimes it sounds too much like loneliness. I learned new routines. Trash on Thursdays. Furnace filter every second month. Ava's therapy transport. Pine Hollow forms. Trust documents. Legal updates. Grocery lists without Mark's cereal. I discovered that competence is not the same as peace. You can manage everything and still feel the shape of what is missing. Mark asked for a conversation after 3 months. Not through a text, through Dana, properly, respectfully, with proposed boundaries. Public place, 1 hour, no pressure, no discussion of moving home unless I raised it. Dana read the request and looked at me over her glasses. He is learning format. I almost smiled. We met at a diner 2 towns over. Neutral territory, bad coffee, vinyl booths, a waitress who called everyone hun. Mark looked older, not dramatically, just less defended. His hands rested on the table, palms down, visible. He had learned somewhere that visible hands are less threatening. "Thank you for coming," he said. I nodded. He did not reach for me. "Good. I'm not asking to come home," he said. "Okay. I'm not asking for forgiveness." "Good." A brief almost smile, gone quickly. "I want to tell you what I have done, and then I want to ask what Ava needs from me. Not what do I need to do to get back. Not how long will you punish me. What does Ava need?" I let him speak. Therapy twice a week. A group for adult children of manipulative parents and partners. Financial accountability course. A letter to Pine Hollow acknowledging harm, not requesting access. A signed statement to the prosecutor regarding Vanessa's planning. A written apology to my mother, which sounded strange until he pulled it from his pocket and placed it on the table. "You don't have to read it," he said. "I just needed to write it." I did read it. Not there, later, but I picked it up. "What does Ava need?" he asked. I looked at the man across from me, the man who had handed Vanessa the envelope, the man who had told the court the truth, the man who had loved our daughter and failed her. "She needs consistency that does not ask for applause." He nodded. "She needs you to stop using guilt as proof of love." His eyes filled. He nodded again. "She needs you to understand that if she gives you a crow, it is not a pardon. It is a crow." A small breath left him. Not a laugh, recognition. "I know. Do you?" "I'm trying to." I hated that answer because it sounded honest. For a while we drank terrible coffee. Then Mark said, Vanessa took the plea. I knew, Dana had told me. Fraud, forgery, restitution agreement, probation likely because first offense and partial recovery, though the prosecutor was pushing for confinement. Ryan had cooperated. Caleb had given a statement. Vanessa's life as a professional victim had become a documented pattern. How do you feel? I asked. Mark looked at the window. Empty, he said, and ashamed that part of me still wants to rescue her from it. That was the first answer that made me believe therapy was doing something. What do you do with that part? I asked. I don't obey it. I looked down at my coffee. Outside, a truck passed. Inside, someone laughed at another table. Ordinary life continuing around extraordinary damage. When we left, Mark walked me to my car but stayed 6 feet away. I'll keep showing up, he said, even if it never gets me home. I opened the car door. That is the first kind of showing up that matters. On the passenger seat, my mother's letter waited in my bag. If the bridge is ever threatened, the bridge was not repaired, but somewhere beneath us, supports were being inspected, one beam at a time. Ava's first day at Pine Hollow smelled like rain, pencil shavings, and cafeteria toast. She wore her cardinal sweater and carried a backpack too large for her shoulders. Inside were 3 paper birds, her communication tablet, noise-reducing headphones, and the crow card Mark had laminated. She had insisted on packing it herself. I did not ask why. Mark met us in the parking lot because Ava had requested it through her tablet the night before. Daddy walk, door only. Door only meant exactly that. Walk to the entrance. No classroom, no lingering, no making it about adult feelings. Mark arrived 10 minutes early and stood beside his car with both hands visible, like the diner. He did not approach until Ava nodded. Morning bird, he said. She held out the crow card. He looked at me. Take it, I said. He took it. Ava adjusted her backpack straps with fierce concentration. Then she started toward the entrance. Mark walked on her left. I walked on her right. For 20 yards, we looked almost like a family. Almost is a dangerous word. At the door, Ava stopped. Mr. Owen waited inside, holding a picture card with an Arctic tern on it. He did not wave. He did not call her brave. He simply stood where he said he would stand. Accuracy again. Ava turned to Mark. Door only, she said. He crouched. Door only. She reached out and tapped the crow card in his hand. Keep. His face changed. Are you sure? Keep. He closed his fingers around it, as if it were glass. Thank you. Ava looked at me next. Mom after. I'll be here after. Same spot. Same spot. She walked through the door without looking back. I did not breathe until she disappeared down the hall beside Mr. Owen. Mark stood up slowly. The parking lot was full of parents pretending not to watch us. Let them. I had lived through worse audiences. She gave me the crow, he said. She did. I know it's not a pardon. Good. But it is something. Yes, I said. It is something. We stood in the rain-misted morning with the school doors closing in front of us. Mark looked at the crow card in his hand. I am filing for a formal guardianship limitation, he said. I turned. What? My attorney is sending it today. I don't want access to any of Ava's funds again. Not now, not later. If something happens to you, Dana or another independent trustee should manage it. I stared at him. I thought you should know before paperwork arrived. The old Mark would have presented that as proof he deserved trust. The new Mark, if there was one, simply told me and waited. Thank you, I said. He nodded. I also wrote to Pine Hollow, not asking for records, just acknowledging the harm. I know. His eyes flicked to me. Celeste sent it to me, I said. She said it was appropriate. That word again. Appropriate, not heroic, not enough, but appropriate. We both almost smiled. After Mark left, I sat in my car until the first update came through the parent app. Ava entered classroom, chose bird table, used tablet to request quiet corner, no distress observed. No distress observed. I read it 4 times. Then I called my mother's voicemail, disconnected for over a year, just to hear the automated message say the number was no longer in service. I don't know why. Grief is not logical. It reaches for doors that are gone. I got her there. I whispered anyway. The line beeped and died. At pickup, Ava came out wearing a paper crown with feathers taped to it. Pine good, she said. 2 words. A whole world. I looked at the doors, the parking lot camera above them, the place where truth had begun its slow return. Yes, I said, crying openly now. Pine good. And for the first time in months, Ava did not ask if I was sad. She knew these tears were different. People think the school camera caught Vanessa. It did. It caught the red folder, the envelope, the hug, the laugh. It caught Caleb uninjured in the passenger seat, bored by a fraud adults were preparing to dignify with words like emergency and complicated. It caught Mark choosing the story that made him feel necessary over the truth that would have made him responsible. But that is not all it caught. It caught the exact second my marriage stopped being protected by memory. Before the footage, I still had places to hide. Mark was overwhelmed. Mark was manipulated. Mark panicked. Mark believed a mother trying to save her son. Each explanation was a small room where I could sit for a while and avoid looking at the house burning down around me. The camera took those rooms away. That was mercy. Cruel mercy, but mercy. Vanessa was sentenced in January. Probation, restitution, community service restrictions, and a fraud conviction that followed her into every committee and fundraiser she tried to enter afterward. She wept in court. I watched without satisfaction. Satisfaction would have required her to understand what she had done beyond being caught. I do not think Vanessa understands harm unless it lands on her. Ryan received less time for cooperating. Caleb transferred schools. Principal Hayes wrote me once to say he seemed quieter afterward. I hoped, for his sake, that quiet meant thinking and not simply learning better ways to hide. Mark did not come home. Not that year. This is the part people dislike, when they want stories to end cleanly. They want restitution plus apology to equal reunion. They want truth to be a broom that sweeps the floor back to before. Truth is not a broom. Truth is a light. Sometimes it shows you the room can be clean. Sometimes it shows you the foundation crack. Mark kept showing up. Supervised visits became unsupervised afternoons. He learned Ava's Pine Hollow schedule. He stopped asking me for emotional credit. He paid what the court ordered and then more. He sent weekly summaries of his therapy not as proof but as record. He learned to say, "I wanted to feel needed," without attaching Vanessa's name to it like a shield. Ava built trust the way birds build nests. Tiny pieces, repeated motions, no speeches. In spring, she let Mark attend the Pine Hollow Migration Festival. Door only had become gym only. He stood beside the bleachers holding the crow card in his wallet. Ava presented a poster about crows remembering faces. At the end, she looked at him and said, "Crows remember good too." Mark cried so hard he had to leave the gym. I let him. Some moments are not for witnesses. A month later, we met at Dana's office to finalize the long-term trust structure. Independent trustee. No unilateral parental withdrawals. Education and medical payments directly to providers. Ava protected from both catastrophe and sentiment. When I signed, I felt my mother in the room. Not as a ghost, as design. She had built a bridge strong enough to survive the people crossing it badly. Afterward, Mark walked me to my car. "I know I may never come home," he said. I looked at him. He was not asking, just naming the truth. "I know you know," I said. "Do you want to try dinner sometime? The three of us. Public place, no pressure." I thought about it. Not because he deserved yes. Because Ava had asked the week before whether families could be different shapes and still be real. "One dinner," I said. "Public place, Ava chooses." He nodded, eyes bright. "Thank you. Do not thank me yet. She may choose the Bird Sanctuary Cafe with the terrible soup. I'll eat terrible soup." I almost smiled. That weekend, Ava chose the cafe. We sat by the window. Mark listened while Ava explained why ravens were not just big crows. He did not interrupt. He did not check his phone. He did not make her progress about his redemption. He just listened. Outside, birds moved along the fence line, quick and black against the afternoon sky. I watched my daughter speak. I watched her father listen. I did not know what we were becoming, but I knew what we were not anymore. We were not a house where a woman like Vanessa could say emergency and empty our daughter's future before anyone asked for proof. We were not a marriage where silence got mistaken for peace. We were not people who folded because someone cried first. The camera caught the theft. The court restored the trust. But Ava taught me what justice looked like after the verdict. It looked like a child crossing a bridge built in her name, one careful step at a time, while the adults finally learned to stop setting fires behind her.